This is Dr. Greg Hall once again with Better Black Health, brought to you by the Better Black Health book, as well as the genetic sequence multivitamins, the only multivitamins made to address the unique nutritional needs of African Americans. Go to sequencemultivitamins.com, get your bottle, go to Amazon, or go to betterblackhealth.net and get your book. Join us again, my favorite guest, and I hope my other guests aren't listening, Dr. Tim Goler. It's like having a favorite child, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
Sociologist, educator, public. He's on a public intellectual. I don't know where that came from, right?
I don't know where that came from.
He's a public intellectual. My
Right.
goodness.
Well,
But a
what
man
does
on
that
a
mean?
mission to help Black people,
Yeah,
professor
that's
at
right.
Norfolk State University, chair of the Department of Sociology, doing all kinds of work, and the author of the new book, Liberated Mind, A Guide to Black Clarity. So he talks about a three-tiered journey, understand how negative thinking was formed, how our perceptions can be distorted by systems of racialized stress, and most importantly, the concrete steps to reconstruct ourselves. It's called the Reconstructed Theory, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But as I've mentioned before, I've read the book. I saw myself in all the book and in all the people around me, and I would see, how people would say, Black people would say, "Oh, I want a Jewish lawyer," or I want, if a Black person came to do some work at their house, sometimes their initial reaction, some people, not all, is that they're going to do inferior work. So we already got white people and other people thinking if a Black person shows up, we're going to do inferior work. And we got the president saying, if you got a Black pilot, he's probably not a good pilot. You should worry about that. Or if you have a Black doctor, you should worry about them being inferior. I mean, so we've got that out there, and then also we're thinking it,
Mhm.
our inclination is to think that, or our guard is up, and that's part of this mind molding that
Mhm.
starts early in terms of how we look at ourselves and people
Yes.
who look like us. So anyway,
Yes.
welcome back, Tim Goler. I was droning on and on.
No,
Let's
that's
talk
good.
about that, how we look
Yeah,
at people who look like us and discount them.
man. That's I think we had mentioned before one time that the environment around us eventually becomes the environment within us, right? So, meaning, I'm saying that to say we're not having these discussions in a vacuum,
Right.
right? What we hear repeatedly becomes what we believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? What we experience becomes what we expect. What we are taught
Mm-hmm.
becomes what we normalize, right? So
Right.
over time, I'm saying over time, conditions outside of us becomes convictions inside of us. So we are convicted that we have convictions that I'm going to get the bad service, and so it becomes, or don't go see a Black doctor, or do whatever. So that's why I often say the most powerful prison is one that we can't see.
Right.
Right? The bars are invisible. The walls are kind of psychological. The limitations become internalized, and eventually people begin to start policing themselves. We begin to start limiting ourselves, questioning ourselves, doubting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Not just ourselves, but we end up starting to doubt each other. You can't do for me.
Right. Right.
you
Right.
know. So I think part of that is where that comes from, right? Not because somebody's standing over us, but because the voice of limitation has moved inside of us, and we believe that we can't do, and neither can you.
Right. 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 Yeah, we can't. Right. We don't measure up, and neither do you.
I, we see ourselves as that, right?
Right.
I mean, we see that, right? So, like, even but it's let me just Dr. Naeem Akbar, who wrote the foreword to my book, he speaks about how kind of oppression eventually becomes psychology. W.E.B. Du Bois, uh, which PBS just came out with a fantastic documentary that I would suggest everybody see. W.E.B. Du Bois. He described people forced to see themselves uh, uh, through the eyes of others. And it's this theory he came up with called the double consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's so the external world that we live and the things that are there show up in how we treat one another, right? Because people begin to internalize distortion.
Right, right, right. And so they tend to treat people the way they internally believe they should be treated. As a
Exactly.
second, as I've said multiple times, we're in the United States. We're second class citizens, and then and we are, but at the same time, I shouldn't acknowledge that. You would say a liberated mind would not acknowledge being a second class citizen. Let's take Obama for example. When Obama started, when they first started talking about him being president, it's like a black man is not going to be president of the United States. Michelle Obama says you're not going to be president of the United States. But guess who didn't believe he wasn't going to be president of the United States?
Right.
Obama.
Exactly.
Because his mind, at least from that standpoint, had been liberated beyond where we consider, black people saying we're not going to have a black president, ain't going to vote for Hillary because
Yep.
it's a waste of time to vote for
Right.
him. And that attitude, thankfully, he didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
And part of that, I don't know if he would admit to it, comes from having a white mother who raised him. Her perspective.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, but so that's why it's very important to to know how to ask questions. People talking about AI, and you got to do the prompts, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to, in order to use AI, you got to be able to. But I think the same thing is important in life, right? In order to get your life to where it needs to be, to get to exercise, to become liberated, if you mind, you got to prompt. You got to be able to prompt yourself with the right questions, right? And
Right.
so you got to, part of it is we got to start asking questions like, who taught me to see myself that way? Who taught me what success looks like? Who taught me what beauty looks like, right? Who taught me to think the way I think? Because once these kind of limiting thoughts, become normalized, people stop asking questions. They start adjusting to it. They
Mm-hmm.
start accommodating to it, right?
Right.
And eventually we end up starting to defend these things and saying, well, this is just how it is.
Right.
Right.
And
We even
that's a form of liberation, isn't it? To be able to say, it doesn't matter what you think, you know,
ab-
right?
absolutely
Right.
is a form of liberation. I mean, but that's one of the reasons they just say, well, I don't want you reading these books.
Right, right, right. Because you might educate yourself and learn that the way you're looking at things is wrong. I mean, many people will look for validation, and so I was interviewing an actress. I don't remember Shamika. Her name was Shamika. I was
Oh, okay.
interviewing her, and she's a great actress, and doing outstanding work. And I said, but she never got an Emmy. She never got an Oscar. I said, you see people in movies, TV shows who got Emmys for stuff. Does that bother you? And she said, not really, because those aren't for us. Those
Right.
awards are not for us, because she's looking like in my mind, I'm thinking, have you been validated by white people? Right? That's really what I'm
Right.
asking. If you never got
Right.
an Emmy, I'm really asking, have you ever been validated by white people? And what would that feel like? Wow, white validation. Wow. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
her mind is more liberated than my mind at the time I asked that stupid question. Was that,
Yeah.
why should I get overly excited about being recognized by a system that really is not even designed to recognize me? Which is
No,
the thing. So, but too many of us are looking for validation from the majority population, and
yeah.
and that's a form of prison, isn't it? Waiting for that
No,
validation that you generally almost never get wholeheartedly, right?
no, man. I mean, listen. The validation. Ooh, I'm glad you're saying this. Validation is so powerful. Validation ends up being what shapes people's identity, right? And a lot of times, much of what we call identity is inherited. You know, and not everything that's inherited really belongs to us. And so, I mean, if you think about black men, for instance, it is very few of our black men ever, like, we're in the process of life or aging or growing up. Does a black man ever get validated?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that?
I'm waiting on mine.
Right. Where is that? I mean, where is it that you begin to learn who you are and the validation of who you are? And so a lot of the beliefs, some of the beliefs that, you know, that were inherited that were passed down to us, right? But we never been validated, right? And I think what's key is this, some of those stuff has been passed down through love. Some has been passed down through fear, survival,
right,
trauma,
right,
but also through distortion. and I think becoming free, part of becoming free, part of becoming liberated, part of becoming is and to that young lady is understanding what you didn't know at the time, which is understanding or learning the difference.
Mm-hmm. The difference between that and that yeah, and then taking whatever validation you get from that community with a little bit of a grain of salt too. I mean, don't go crazy thinking you've made it, because they'll snatch you off the stage.
No,
right?
You hit the nail on the nose. Because part of in my book where I talk about one of the things that we have to do in order to the path from survival to direction or to a liberated mind, there's a process, and I put forth in the book called the reconstructed self theory. And the first pillar is the idea of unlearning, to be able to unlearn. And so part of it is to be able to unlearn some of these inherited beliefs
that are ingrained in us.
That's so ingrained in us,
right?
That keep us from and being stuck in old roles or old expectations. These kind of things, right? So yes, to your point.
So when you talked about Dr. Naim Akbar, which I would love to be able to be the intellectual and say, oh yes, Dr. Naim Akbar, the foremost father of African American psychology. I hadn't heard of him. I didn't know. I'm like, who's this guy on the cover of Tim's book?
I know, right?
But he was. You said, talk about him and what he's brought to the way we look at African Americans or blacks.
Oh man, he wrote a book that had tremendous influence on me early in my development, if you will, intellectually and mentally, and trying to figure this thing out called life.
Right.
And the book was called Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery. And it's a book that it's a little small, thin book. It's not no bigger than a minute.
Right.
And I figured I could read this.
Right, yeah.
Because it wasn't no huge book, right? And I said, man, this sounds interesting. And what he spoke to was about kind of how slavery and oppression becomes psychological, and that was the most, and it wasn't the shackles on your wrist and ankles, it was the shackle that was on your mind.
Right.
That was profound to me. And when I started to just simply think about it from like an education standpoint, right? That that how powerful, why do you think people rail against and fight public education and not reading books so vehemently? It's because education, what it really is the science of the mind.
Right.
I have you all day long from the rooter to the tutor, from the time you come out the womb until whenever you graduate high school or middle school or college. And if I control, or if I am one of the containers and I control education, I can control what I feed into your mind every day and shape your behavior, shape your identity, shape what you see. I can shape your values. I remember, you remember this, when we were going through school back in the day, when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school, every day in the morning, the first thing we did, we said, I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, to the republic, which is blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We were being indoctrinated into an ideology.
Right. At that point.
At that point, but we ain't thinking about it.
Right. No, we were just doing what the teacher said to do.
Right, we're doing, but what is indoctrination? Indoctrination is a shaping of an ideology, of a thought process, right? And so, if I have that kind of power, then I can shape who you are. So the mind for him was the oppression, really kind of to break free from that was to become liberated, if you will, right? And so that's why I was honored for him to write the foreword of my book, because he was also one of the founders of the African American Black psychology in America, right?
Which is
and
thing.
so
and so it just strikes me. One, why have I never heard of him? Two, why is this? Why it was so? I mean, if it's so groundbreaking, why is it? Why don't we know about it? Right? We don't know about it, and that you would say that's not a conspiracy. That's deliberate. That's absolutely deliberate. We can let this. We'll give him an award, but nobody's going to find out. And and we should. Everyone Black should know about that, right?
Oh well, of course, but it's part of it's part of the process, right? It's part of the society we live. And it's part of the way things are structured, right? I mean, he's a psychologist. You're a medical doctor. Neither two of the domains meet.
Right.
That's what's so unique about the fact that we work together and to try to break these silos, because we can never get to holistically improving the conditions of our community if we continue to move like this, right? If it's just he talking in the psychological realm.
Right.
I'm a sociologist. If I just only focus on sociology, if you only focus on medicine, we will never actually completely help our people, and so you have people like Franz Fanon, which a lot of people, many people, but he described what happens when people internalize distorted images of themselves, and how colonialism affects people's image of who they are. You have James Baldwin, right? He also, so you have these, James Baldwin understood this deeply. Baldwin, he once observed that one of the greatest tragedies is convincing people to doubt their own worth.
Right.
Not merely to oppress them, but to convince them that they deserve their oppression.
Right. Which is the next step, and we're laughing because it's so crazy, but it's genius, but it's also genius. I mean, because they've pulled this off. They've actually pulled this off
and continue to pull it off. And as long as that's the frustrating part, right? And it's because, and believe it or not, and he said, it's getting worse.
Right? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That's with the algorithms and all that.
Oh, don't even get me going there right now. I mean, we can talk about that, but it's getting worse. And so when you convince people that their limitations are, again, natural.
Right.
Again, it becomes, their conditions are normal. That's a very dangerous place to be.
It is.
That's a very dangerous place to be.
So when we talk about those algorithms, you think, I have this thing. I'll confess that I laugh when people fall off a ladder, or trip and slip on ice on up and down the stairs. And Instagram shows me those things incessantly, and I continue to laugh. You know what I mean? And it knows I'm watching it some kind of way. I don't like them. I don't, put a little like thing, but it knows I'm watching them. So there are people, black people, who like to see black people do stupid things, like to see people shake their bottom, like to see people act up at a funeral or act up at a restaurant, and then the algorithm starts to show them that stuff. And so now you're seeing black buffoonery. I laugh at black buffoonery because for some psychological reason, it kind of confirms this: you are less than, you are just a buffoon in our society if you believe that. And then now the algorithm is showing you all this buffoonery, that I'm sure white people like to see black buffoonery, and then you've got certainly black people that want to see it, and it sort of reinforces that dysfunctional view. And so, how do you think this social media and Facebook and all that, what is that going to do in support or in worsening our the options of us, the possibility of us ever having a liberated mind?
So there's a chapter in my book, it's chapter 6, right? And I talk about, the chapter is called Mental Warfare in Modern Age, right? And I talk about different areas like algorithmic amplification, and I can talk about that, narrative fragmentation, emotional hijacking, right? But propaganda has always been a battlefield. It's always been that. Let me just share a sentence here with you. It says, those in power, this is my book in chapter 6, those in power have consistently controlled what counts as knowledge, whose stories get told, whose reality is interpreted. But today's information ecosystem presents a unique challenge. This is to your point, and opportunities.
Right.
Social media platforms, that's what we're on right now.
Right.
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 We're using this, I think, in the proper way.
Right.
These 24-hour news cycles, algorithmic curation, and sophisticated persuasion techniques create an environment where distinguishing truth from manipulation requires unprecedented levels of discernment.
Wow. And
and you have to, and it's tricky. And for Black communities, I say here, the battle has particular stakes. Our narratives have historically been distorted, our experiences delegitimized, our knowledge systems marginalized, right? So this is a serious thing. And then with this advent of AI now, it is even getting, this is something that really needs to be paid close attention to. I think our community needs to be much more vigilant in this space, because now you literally, we're on, but I could be an AI right now.
Damn, is that you?
No, this is my AI.
Well, I tell you what, your AI would have higher definition than your camera right now.
Fact.
The fact that you're still blurry, it means that, no, this is the real Tim Goler, because he's too cheap to buy a good camera for his computer.
You are correct. This is the real me.
But listen, you mentioned that the book is especially for people who've done therapy but felt something was missing, and the missing piece, is so they're done therapy, but that they've done conventional therapy does not address the oppression related to being Black, right? And that is that what you're talking about, or what are you talking about that when you're saying what's being missed? People have gone through therapy, they've got problems, they've got self-worth issues, things that they actually know, not the people that we were talking about who don't know, and then they still leave therapy wanting more.
Yeah.
Is this what they're missing?
Well, listen, I mean, I'm not going to say that people don't need, I mean, I've been through therapy. I mean, therapy is not a bad thing, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not a bad thing, but um, what I think is what I think is very important is the context. Context matters.
Mm-hmm.
Context matters, and regardless of, I mean, out of any racial and ethnic group in America, Black people have a unique experience
Right.
in this country,
Right.
right? And so understanding that, and understanding kind of the these the kind of the sociological aspect of the mind, the
Mm-hmm.
pressure, I think is deeply important. I think is one aspect that is missing when it comes to kind of uh, 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 examining and talking to our people as it relates to um, uh, us trying to figure out what's going on.
Right, right. And when you think about, one of the things when I first edition of my book, I was trying to get published, and they said, so why are you talking about African Americans? Talk about minorities, talk about Hispanic Latinos, talk about Asian Americans. And I said, I don't know anything about Hispanic Latinos and Asian American health, specific health issues, right? And so, to an extent, I mean, I know they have oppression issues, they have second class citizen issues, some of them, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not the same. It's not the same. And I think addressing their therapy in a way that addresses that is got to be essential, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is essential. But I talk about also in the book a difference between mental health and mental freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a difference between those two, and um uh and there's a difference between mental health and mental illness, right?
Right. No, I
Right.
would say I have mental health, but I do not have mental freedom.
Exactly, right. And so many of us don't. And so I think as it relates to what it is that African Americans we need in my mind
Mm-hmm.
is we need mental freedom as well, meaning that if I would contend that if we could deal with these distortions that have happened to us, it would probably eliminate a lot of the mental health issues or mental illness issues that we have.
Right.
Right. So
And a lot of the hypertension and the diabetes and the lupus and the chronic pain, all those things.
yes,
Because
I believe that's what would happen. So can I just share this part about the mental health and mental freedom?
yes, please do.
So mental health and mental freedom, and I'm just going to read this little short excerpt, if that's
Yeah, read
okay.
it. Go ahead.
It said mental health, and this is a mental health and mental freedom. There's a critical distinction to be made between mental health as defined by clinical standards and mental freedom as defined by our own liberation.
Mm-hmm.
The former focuses on symptom reduction, right? On helping individuals adapt to their circumstances, to returning to normal functioning. But what if, here's the question,
Mm-hmm.
what if normal functioning in an abnormal society is itself a form of distortion?
Right.
Mental health, as conceptualized by Western psychology, often fails to account for the social political context in which Black minds develop. It pathologizes responses to oppression rather than pathologizing the oppression itself.
Wow.
So there's a difference, right? There's a difference, and so when we talk about uh, American psychology, Western psychology, and being diagnosed or seeing therapy, I think there needs to be also a counterpoint to that to say, did we look at it this way?
Right. Well, this is Dr. Tim Goler. Join us again for another episode of Better Black Health. His book is available on, what's the website, Tim?
TimGoler.com.
Excellent. TimGoler.com. It's also available on Amazon if you want to give Jeff Bezos some money rather than Tim Goler.
Right.
Outstanding book. I can't highly recommend it. Sponsored in part by the National Institute for African American Health, which is saying, our health, you don't miss it now. Our health starts with our brain, starts with our oppression. It starts with our perspective. And we have the ability within us to improve. And all of us, not just people who don't recognize they have a problem can improve, and people who do recognize they have a problem who can improve. And so this was a very eye-opening book for me. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And so thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Tim Goler.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Please. Yes.
I think I may invest in a better camera for you too.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
All right.
None of the statements that I have made have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Genetic sequence multivitamins are not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any diseases. Furthermore, none of my statements should be construed as dispensing medical advice or making claims regarding the cure or prevention of diseases. You should consult your own licensed healthcare provider before starting any supplement, diet change, or exercise program, especially if you're pregnant or have pre-existing injuries or medical conditions. Remember, having a doctor is always your best option.